Over 2 decades ago, this tiny dude expanded the capabilities of video games across the board. Most titles at the time were slow-paced and blocky, yet in 1991, Sega hit us with Sonic, a character that played faster, his gameplay was smoother, and his music was radder. He's Sega's baby who raised them from an underdog in Nintendo's massive shadow to a worthy competitor in the console-dominated market of the 90s. Although he once looked down on Mario, Sonic has seen a decline in the last decade. Games like Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 skyrocketed this blue speedster and his creator to the absolute top of fandom, while titles such as Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06, well, they didn't. This franchise has undoubtedly seen a decline since its heyday. But why? What made him struggle after such a mind-blowing first few games? And what has been done to pull him from his pit of despair? To find out, let's check out the life of Sonic. A tale of speed, hardcore attitude, Eggman, and weird boner-inducing interspecies romance. All in all, a bizarre concoction of downright awesome and incredibly terrible, awkwardly duct-taped together in the story you never knew. To understand who Sonic really is, we must first look at the era from which he was born. 1991 was a time when acid-wash jeans were cool, and you could wear a skin-tight jumpsuit while riding a motorcycle into an airplane without having to be ironic about it. That is, the early 90s was all about the extreme, the edgy, and from the cocaine-sprinkled ashes of it all rose Sonic, a hedgehog that showed the world unrivaled speed when gameplay was notoriously slow, all while jamming to a soundtrack of hard driving rock. Just look at that fucker, that smirk, that wagging finger, those in-your-face colors. Sonic is undeniably a rad dude. And with that, let's dive into Sonic the Hedgehog, a game that completely rewrote the boundaries for what video games could be. Sonic debuted on the 16-bit Sega Genesis in all his hedgehogness, on a mission to free his animal friends from robot body prisons. Dr. Robotnik, aka Eggman, is responsible for this madness because he aims to collect the 6 Chaos Emeralds and harness their power. At first glance, this game is striking with its exuberant colors and fast-paced platforming that meshed incredibly well with Sonic's attitude. You can really get a feel for the character by his subtle behavior throughout the game. For instance, if you stop moving for a bit, Sonic will look at you and tap his foot impatiently. Also, if you wait long enough, he'll say he's out of here and jump off the stage. It's a dude like that which drives Sonic to blaze his way through South Island, freeing the adorable animals and jumping repeatedly at Eggman's ridiculous contraptions until he's defeated. If you don't collect every Chaos Emerald by the time you best Robotnik, you're shown a screen of Eggman taunting you with an impressive juggling move. If you do collect every emerald, then a different, better ending takes place. That's right, take it, you ridiculous round man! Overall, it's clear that Sonic is iconic for his attitude and speed. As for the rest of his universe, it's all very cartoony. Eggman is an absurd-looking villain with absurd contraptions and only a vague plan to acquire power and take over the world. He looks evil, but not very menacing or threatening. Not exactly worried about this guy hatching a plot to realize the Fourth Reich. Maybe a convoluted plan to steal Cable from me. But that's about it. Speaking of which, Robotnik goes back to his evil ways in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It hit shelves in 1992 for the Genesis once again. This time, Robotnik plans to collect 7 Chaos Emeralds whilst constructing his Death Egg, an orbital space station which is probably very dangerous. At the beginning, we're introduced to another playable character, Miles Tails Prower, and are given the ability to choose him, Sonic, or both. The plot for this game is essentially the same simple idea as the last one. The player must stop Eggman from taking over the world while collecting some Chaos Emeralds. After a long, hard, fast-paced crusade of freeing the happy animal friends from their very unhappy robot body prisons, Sonic and or Tails meet Robotnik in space for their final encounter. The Death Egg and its creator prove little issue for the blue blur and or this furry dude. Especially if the player is Sonic and has collected all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Because only then can you give a nod to Goku and transform Sonic into Super Sonic. A badass, glowing form that can run faster, jump higher, and is invincible to any attacks. It's not necessary to defeat Eggman, but it certainly is cool. With that, peace has returned, and we can thank Sonic and or Tails for that. At this point, we've been through the first 2 games in this revolutionary franchise. What really made these games stand out were the don't give a fuck personality of the Blue Blur and his crazy fast gameplay. The next few Sonic games capitalized on these concepts beautifully, but as technology advanced into the 3rd dimension, Sonic would find himself in a midlife crisis right around his 3rd birthday. And sadly, it wasn't even his fault. By the end of 1994, Sega had oversaturated their own market with the Sega Genesis, its add-ons, the Sega CD and 32X, and the soon-to-be Sega Saturn. While the hardware itself proved very capable, consumers were reluctant to buy a Sega system if it would be replaced by another so quickly. People weren't buying. Third-party developers didn't want to create content for Sega systems, and so the platforms that Sonic had existed on were being abandoned thanks to Sega's marketing failures. It was up to this guy to save Sega from itself, and so the Sonic team was tasked to create a fully 3D Sonic game by the Saturn's release date. That way, the beloved Hedgehog could spark interest in the console and regain Sega's lost popularity. The original 3D release was to be titled Sonic Xtreme, a game with a weird fisheye camera lens that seemed generally bad looking. Fortunately, it was canned, but unfortunately, it was replaced with Sonic 3D Blast. Yep, this is what it looked like. Somehow an island made of tile instead of, I don't know, dirt or grass seemed like a good idea. Worse still, Sonic's attitude is nowhere to be seen, and the gameplay is generally very slow and boring. I'm not blaming the Sonic team for this catastrophe, as they were given such an absurd deadline by Sega's executives, who I can only imagine were baked as hell for the entirety of the mid-90s. The years of Sega Saturn were dark indeed. But on the horizon laid the last hope for Sega's consoles. A machine that would try to bring love back to Sega with new hardware and an actually finished Sonic game. The Dreamcast was released in 1999 in North America, bringing with it Sonic Adventure, perhaps the first 3D Sonic game to not completely suck. Sonic and friends now had voices, their gameplay was fun, and the plot brought some depth to the universe without going too far. Although Sonic Adventure blew its 3D predecessors out of the water, it wasn't without its flaws. The camera system is often criticized for its poor angle choices, and the plot was considered by some longtime fans to be too convoluted. But with the release of Sonic Adventure 2, many of those concerns were put to rest. I won't go into details about its plot. However, it does introduce the iconic Shadow the Hedgehog, a darker, more mature character in the Sonic franchise. The game was received extremely well, garnering mostly positive reviews for its Dreamcast release in 2001, and was praised for its smooth gameplay and catchy soundtrack. Promising, yes, but even a great Sonic title wasn't enough to restore people's faith in Sega's hardware. For the Dreamcast would be the last console Sega ever released, thanks to mediocre sales from their tainted reputation. Instead, Sega would strictly focus on game development. Let's fast forward to the year 2005. Jean jackets have long since faded in popularity, and the attitude that made Sonic so popular is getting old. Gaming has become more mature, and what better way to break into that market of maturity than with shadow packing heat? really, I'm sure there were much better ways. Shadow the Hedgehog took the grittiness that gamers of the era loved, multiplied it by a bajillion, and slapped it onto a franchise that was supposed to be a light-hearted cartoon. The gameplay itself received mixed reviews, but this is a video about Sonic, not Shadow. Instead, I'll trade this low-hanging fruit for one that's rotting on the ground in agony. In an attempt to further rebrand Sonic from the extremeness of his era, Sega needed to completely redefine him. Sega needed a new Sonic game. It needed to be fast. It needed to be gritty. It needed to be revolutionary. It needed to be absolutely terrible. Apparently. Sega projectile vomited Sonic the Hedgehog onto shelves in 2006. It was another rushed game by an already mistake-ridden company that was so bad it's a contender for the worst video game ever made. Fans even call it Sonic 06 because it doesn't deserve the name of the franchise. The plot is irrelevant, but basically this princess named Elise has a Chaos Emerald that holds the secret to some flame thing that Eggman wants. The time-space continuum gets ruptured and some time traveling happens. Even still, the most memorable thing to come out of Sonic 06 wasn't the ridiculously overdone plot, it wasn't the glitch-ridden gameplay, or even the bland environments. Rather, it was the romance between Sonic and a real woman. According to an official Treesicle survey, exactly 0 out of 3 women are willing to have sex with a 3-foot cartoon hedgehog. Bizarre, I know. Sega would have been better off rebranding their beloved icon with anything but this. Even a Baywatch game starring Sonic the Hasselhog. Oh God, it's hideous. I take it back. Nothing is worse than that abomination. I need air. Okay. Let's just move on to Sonic's most recent releases for some eye bleach. The franchise post-Sonic 06 has been a roller coaster of mixed emotions. The following game, Sonic Unleashed, was received reasonably well, but the real kickers, the real glimmers of hope, were Sonic Generations and Sonic Colors. Generations was a celebration of Sonic's 20th anniversary in 2011 that compiled the best Sonic games from the last 2 decades and upgraded them in a truly great platformer. Sonic Colors received even better ratings than Generations, being called the greatest Sonic game in 18 years. It brought Sonic back to his platforming roots in a silly but awesome adventure to stop Robotnik from making the Earth into a theme park attraction. More recent titles like Sonic Lost World received positive but less enthusiastic reviews. With inconsistencies like this, it's difficult to predict the future of Sonic. We can only hope that by truly understanding what made him so popular, Sega can raise his name to greatness once again. Sonic's life has been full of twists and turns, constantly at the mercy of his creator's successes and failures. Perhaps the only thing that remained clear throughout his life is what made him so great in the first place. The original games kept people playing because the better you were, the faster you could play. This mind-blowing speed was unheard of back in '91, and it came with a healthy dose of the Blue Blur's attitude. As times changed, however, this selling point would prove to be against the times, calling for a disastrous rebranding that tried to put this character in a more realistic, strange environment that he was never meant to occupy. Of course, Sonic's decline from the top was caused not only by a change in culture, but also by Sega's marketing blunders. In a vicious cycle, Sega's poor business choices caused their sales to fall, prompting them to frantically release unfinished titles in hopes of rejuvenating interest. Rinse, repeat. But now Sonic is at a crossroads. His darkest times are behind him, and Sega has produced genuinely great games recently, but only among so-so ones. If Sega was to take more consistent care in producing great Sonic games that capitalized on that blinding speed, seamless gameplay, and badass soundtrack, there's no doubt that Sonic could rise back to the level of other old but beloved characters. Sonic's life is one filled with breakthroughs, failures, perseverance, more failures, speed, and most importantly, a defining set of groundbreaking characteristics that have proven they can still be incredible in today's gaming medium. but only if Sega takes the care to use them. And that's the story you never knew. Don't miss. Coming soon.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. We really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Tyler and this is Ryan. We're two of the editors from Treesicle.
Click on us to see our new podcast, or click down below to see Steve from Minecraft, The Story You Never Knew. Also, you may have seen a new intro at the beginning of this video. That was made by our friend Matthead, aka Goldfish Films. His link is in the description, Matthead Plus.
He's awesome!
Yeah.
Don't forget to like us, comment, subscribe, do all those wonderful things. We love you guys and we'll see you next time.
Do it all!
Dude.
Do it all!
Shh, it's okay, it's okay.